Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is January 13th. This is episode 6. I apologize. I'm having some equipment malfunction, and I got to figure it out. But we are live, going out on YouTube, and I'm recording the show to edit and put in my beautiful little comments above my shoulder. Today, we're going to still be talking about the Democrats, and now it's apparent that they are in full panic mode. Representative Omar, Democrat Minnesota, we all know who Miss Fraud 2026 is. This Sunday on MS Now had stated that the amount of federal law enforcement being applied to Minneapolis is wasting taxpayers' resources and terrorizing our communities. Does she really? Do you feel that way? Do you feel that investigating a crime that is amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars into the billion-dollar range, does it need investigation? So she said this is President Trump's administration's seeks to crack down on fraud and illegal immigration, but using it as a political tool. So, enforcing our laws is a political tool. She says that trying to use conspiracy theories is failing on the administration. Well, I think there is no doubt about the fraud that's going on there. I don't think there's any doubt of the allegations that the money was being siphoned out of the country into terrorist organizations. I don't think there's any doubt that that had happened. There is no doubt that a majority of the fraud was committed inside the Somalian community by Somalians, and of course other people. There's no doubt that there's not going to be other people involved. But to say it's a waste of resources? You think your money being fraudulently taken from you and then being investigated to see if this is a problem that is happening, which we know in other states? Do you really think that this is a good plan by Omar to say that this is all a political hijinks on the part of the Trump administration? She's repeated, and this is a quote, "They are failing for this because it is part of the PR that the Democrats somehow condone this fraud and corruption." Well, Omar, there's a saying here that we use. If the shoe fits, wear it. And birds of the feather flock together. Omar said there hasn't been a single new indictment carried out under the Trump administration, and it's uncovering a fraud in Minnesota. which has led to charges against dozens of defendants, many of them Somalians. She goes, not one. This is just them looking under every rock. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where there's fraud involved, they're going to look under every rock, Omar. You think that's wrong, Omar? You think that's a bad thing? Do you think that our funds are meant for you to just steal? That it's all right? And of course, Omar stated, again, I'm so exhausted in trying to ask what any of this, information has led to you finding any criminals that you have indicted that explains why you're wasting so much of our taxpayer resources. Now, people, what do you really think? We know full well that these crimes go hand in hand with other crimes. And we're looking. And Omar thinks that that's wrong that we're looking. Isn't that amazing how the Democrats think? No problem going after Kavanaugh. No problem going after Trump. Look under everything. We must believe. But when it's them, oh, no, you can stop looking. We caught everyone. No, move on. Up to $9 billion that we know of. I want Doge back. I want Doge back. I want Elon Musk. And the Democrats screaming that Musk found no measurable amount of fraud. Really? Really? In what, the 3 months that you allowed him to look and screamed and held everything back and made it almost impossible for that agency to function? And then when they find stuff, of course, the Minnesota just keeps staying in the news with Ms. Good being shot while in the commission of a crime. Yeah, when you use your car as a weapon and failure to obey the lawful order of federal agents, it's a crime. And she got shot and killed for it. And now people are getting upset that the government is looking into her background to see if she had any links to organized ICE protesters, professional protesters. I think that her wife or partner had stated that she had participated in those programs. This wasn't, she was going out for a bottle of milk and ended up blocking traffic and then, panicked and, saw armed police and panicked and tried to flee the area. She had been detained, stopped, and ordered out of the car. People, I can tell you right now, when you don't listen to the police, you're going to have a hard time. Now, the police could be totally unjustified in stopping you and having you do that, and then violate your Fourth Amendment. But on the side of the road is not where you argue that. If the police order you out of the car, there is a 99% chance you're going to be detained or arrested. What happened in Minnesota, the progressives, the people that use simple-minded people like this, were in joy. They love, because now they have a banner. We can fly this. Look what they did. They don't care about the people that they use, that they sacrifice. They don't care. Their agenda is the Soros agenda, destroy America. And we have to recognize that, and we have to go forward and go. We just can't allow that. You can have legal discourse with the government. You could have protests. That's perfectly fine. But you can't have organizations that demand violence. You can't have that. Cannot have that. Philadelphia DA threatens ICE agents. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner has vowed to arrest and convict any immigration and customs enforcement agencies who purportedly commits a crime under his jurisdiction. So he is saying, if you come to my town and commit or purportedly commit a crime, I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to try you, and I'm going to convict you. So now he is judge, jury, and executioner. The comments were made during a Thursday news conference held in reaction to the deadly incident in Minneapolis, in which a protester was shot after allegedly attempting to run an ICE agent over with her car. So, even the leftist newspapers and the leftist media is admitting in which a protester, and it's not, well, you could say allegedly, the video speaks for itself. You can see it from all different angles. Whether or not she intended to run anyone over, but the fact that she drove the car at an agent, backed up, and then lunged at an agent, hit an agent, that's, yeah. And she could have de-escalated. It was meant to be de-escalated by them telling her to get out of the car. She chose not to. Actions have consequences. So, in District Attorney Larry Krasner, if any law enforcement ICE agents going to come to Philadelphia to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here during a news conference. Now, when you get people to start cursing and doing, because they have a lack of words. So he's been triggered. Bob in New York. And he is now saying, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested, you will stand trial, you will be convicted. So really, he's just jumping over. You won't. You will just be convicted because he's already concluded that you will be found guilty. Donald Trump cannot pardon you for a state court conviction. Do you hear me, ICE agents? Now, he is true in what he's saying, but do you think that that is a little bit over the top for a district attorney? Where ICE agents can come into the state, city, town, and conduct an investigation. And you're saying to them, if you spit on the sidewalk, if you step off the curb, if you jaywalk, if you drive 26 in a 25, or you drive 24 in a 25, we're going to arrest you. Talk about the government seizing power. What do you think that is? Do you not think that that is not the state being all-powerful? You don't think that's like Nazi Germany telling Jews, if you open a store in this town, you will be dealt with? You don't think that's anywhere near that, folks? You don't think that's panic? Because Philadelphia is also going to be under investigation for fraud, as is Baltimore, as in a lot of places. To top that off, Philadelphia's Sheriff Bilal denounced ICE agents as fake and probable Trump's new army to attack citizens during a news conference alongside District Attorney Larry Krasner and progressive city legislators last week. So she is accusing the federal government of creating fake troops and fake agents to arrest citizens. ICE doesn't arrest citizens. They might detain citizens until they can find out, or are they documented, are they here, and then cut loose. Yeah, that can happen. And there's mechanisms inside there that take care of that. But they're not rounding up citizens. They're not rounding up all Jews. They're not rounding up all Catholics. They're not rounding up all Democrats. They're not rounding up all Republicans. Do you see what is going on? Do you see the panic that they would use such rhetoric to try to justify their stance. The hardline statement marks a different approach that Krasner had taken with criminal illegal aliens over the years. He started a program that achieved immigration neutral outcomes, which in practice means elevating and possible lowering charges against migrants, illegals, to ensure their conviction would not result in their deportation. So there were two sets of laws. If you as a citizen did something, the law meant that. If you were an immigrant, an illegal alien, well, the lesser law would apply to you. So you didn't get deported. How outrageous is that? How outrageous where you have a district attorney who doesn't apply the law evenly. Now, you could have mercy. There are situations where where the district attorney can turn around and go, there's such extenuating circumstances that will agree to lower charges. But to say, if you're an illegal, we're going to do everything in our power to get that case settled down lower, not charged with a misdemeanor or not charged with a felony. You're not going to go through state jail if we can avoid it. Is that not outrageous? Is that exactly why Donald Trump was elected? Because they're releasing criminals onto our streets. Why? To protect them, to get votes. To protect them, to get money. To protect them, to commit fraud. What other reason would they have? Mercy? Get them registered. Get them lined up. Get them in the system. But no, they couldn't because the law doesn't allow that. They came here illegal. They got to go. So they came up with these little ideas to make it impossible for the government to act against them, to act in accordance with our laws, to make it impossible. ICE agents' role and authority. U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement agents have the authority under federal law, like Immigration and Naturalization Act 1790, Bob. Look it up. To arrest non-citizens without a judicial warrant. If they have reasonable suspicions, they are in the United States illegally. Now, I agree that's a very broad statement. Now, how do you figure out if they're here illegally if you don't know who they are? So how do you find out who they are? You have to stop them. How do you know? How do you recognize someone? They could be speaking Spanish. They could be speaking Italian. They could be speaking Russian. So, the Democrats throw the Fourth Amendment around a lot, as they can, because that's a right that we all have. So as I was saying, ICE can act to arrest non-citizens without a judicial warrant if they have reasonable suspicions they are in the U.S. illegally, detain them, and enforce immigration laws, but their powers are limited to the Fourth Amendment, requiring warrants for private spaces and generally consistent or probable cause searches, though they can use reasonable force when necessary for their mission. So, let's take a quick look. Private space, as mentioned, and how the Fourth Amendment quantifies private space. Under the Fourth Amendment, private space includes your home, your residence, I believe your car. So that's very iffy. Your person, they just can't throw you up against a wall and search you. They got to stop, detain, and question, and then make a reasonable assumption. So they can't just grab your papers and effects, and protecting against unreasonable government searches. But this protection is limited by exceptions like plain view, consent, probable cause. Very, very important. A key word and a key idea. A probable cause with exigent circumstances. Excuse me, sir. Federal ICE agents, we'd like to talk to you for a second. Or we'd just like to talk to you. And they take off. Those agents then have probable cause that since they identified themselves as ICE agents and that person took off, they have probable cause to believe that they might have a problem with their citizenship. Now, normally it protects your property, not just your house. So if you stepped off your front step and you're still in your yard, you're still covered under the Fourth Amendment that, they need a warrant to do that in most cases. What is that called? Curtilage or something, where there's a certain 15 feet from your house, 17 feet from your house, is considered sacrosanct in that they can't just come up to you and demand. If they knock on your front door and go, I want to speak to you about this, if you open that front door and engage them in conversation, you could end up giving them probable cause. If you say, hey, can we speak with you for a minute? Oh, hey, we'd like to speak to you. And you say, yes, you just gave consent. Consent can go and escalate. And I tell everyone, if you're stopped by the police and you've done something that you should not have done. You've been a bad boy or bad girl. Exercise your Fourth and Fifth Amendment right, because it protects you. And they have limited protection, and I'll go into that. So the core idea is reasonable expectation of privacy, meaning is areas where you retreat from the world are protected. The kitchen of a restaurant is not considered sanctuary. But a church is. I would consider church, a mosque, a synagogue, a Buddhist temple. I would consider that an expectation of privacy. A public bathroom, there is an expectation of privacy, but it's not protected. You could argue that, and that can be argued, but I'll tell you right now, you'll lose that. While public-facing areas or an abandoned property are not. So what does that mean? What does a public-facing area? Well, it means the front of a store, a front of a business, a front of a court, any place that faces a public domain. But there's, like I said, curtilage. There's lines on that. If that was your domain, you have protected rights under that. If it was a shopping center, you have no, that's public. Boom, we can act. I don't need a warrant. You don't. The Democrats crafted their strategies very well by allowing anyone to enter our country with no documentation on who they are. How could the federal government know then who to ask, who to stop, who to detain, without the possibility of violating the Fourth Amendment? So they made a catch-22 situation. Very crafty. To eat up our legal system like they did. But lawyers can be very crafty too. And a lot smarter than a lot of the politicians out there that said, we'll skirt this by doing this, and there's got, some legal guy going, yeah, you could. You could do that. But never telling them that, hey, there could be a problem doing that. Right? So the question is, where do the rights start for those people with no citizenship? And undocumented non-citizens in the U.S. have significant constitutional rights, including due process, fair treatment, the right to a hearing before deportation, equal protection, freedom from unreasonable searches, Fourth Amendment, and basic labor rights, fair pay, anti-discrimination, but again, even in there, the employers who hire these people and not doing their due diligence, they should be fined, out of existence. Out of existence. They have rights to education and to be with family, but face limitations such as not being able to vote or hold federal offices, and are vulnerable to deportations, though they have the right to challenge their removal. due process. All persons in the United are guaranteed a fair legal proceeding and equal treatment under the law, including in countries without being in this country without authorization. But that due process is really intended for a criminal act, whereas immigration is a civil matter. So due process means non-citizens get basic fairness in removal proceedings, including notice of charges, notice to appeal, a chance to present evidence and witnesses, access to an interpreter, and the right to appeal adverse decisions to the Board of Immigration Appeals and potentially federal courts. But unlike criminal cases, there is no constitutional right to the government's funding of lawyers. So they can get a lawyer if they can pay for it themselves. Or they have an advocacy group that provides legal assistance to these people. Making legal representation self-funded and a significant challenge through crucial hearings. So you get detained, and they'll give you Form I-862, notice to appear. Is it 860? Yeah, 862. Notice to appear. But they could also detain you, put you in the facilities and say, you need to get a lawyer, or you can do this yourself. And if we start looking into you and we find criminal activity, then this goes a whole different level. You'll then go to the courts and get a lawyer, but you can be going to jail. Or option 3 is you self-deportate. And you go, okay, I'll leave. And where'd you come from? Brazil? Well, you'll be held at a camp over here, and you are now gave up all legal challenges. Boom, boom, boom. You agree. And by doing so, you are then allowed to apply for immigration back into the United States. You're not going to be held back because you did this voluntarily. And off you go. And a lot of people opt for that because they can find problems with these people. So the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizure applies to everyone in the United States, and it does. First Amendment protects for free speech and assembly, but enforcement can be inconsistent for undocumented individuals. So, you're at a rally and you say, "Death to America," and they go, "Hey, you're here illegally, or you're on a student visa, we're going to revoke that." Out you go. Well, I had freedom of speech. Oh, yeah, you could say it, but there's consequences. So, and out you go. If you're working for an employer, and even though you're illegal and you're not here, you have the right not to be discriminated against. I think that's pretty crazy because you'd have to go to the federal agency to make a complaint, and as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to have you walk down to that ICE office and you're going to have a talk with them. So that doesn't happen. A right to a hearing, entitled to a hearing before deportation to challenge removal. That you're entitled to. But you have to have you don't need representation because it's not guaranteed to you, and you then have to self-representate. Yeah, they're going to ask you some questions, you're going to fail it, and you're deported. And then you can't come back to the United States. You are barred. So, family rights. You have the right to be with your family, but that does not apply to criminal cases where you can be separated from your family. Now, in the case of uh, uh, you're here with your children, and you go, I don't, my children, I want to be with my children. Fine, we'll take your children right into the camp with you. It's not a prison, it's a detention. And you can decide then whether or not you want to stay or you will go. Children do not have the citizen rights. They do not. Now, if the parent goes, no, I want the children to stay, then they're put into foster care, and then we'll figure that out later. But if the parent goes, I want my children with me, off they go. Now, when they turn 18, if the Supreme Court says that they had rights and blah, 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 then that's a whole different story. Talking a whole different avenue there. You do have a right to remain silent. Meaning, if ICE agents came up to you and said, I'd like to have a talk with you. Now, you are required to give pedigreed information, your name, ID. Now, if you don't have ID, then the police can hold you until they can figure out who you are. You just can't say, well, I don't have ID today, and yeah. So you do have certain freedoms. But you have to, on the flip side, you have to meet a certain threshold to get those freedoms. And where I said, very important when dealing with the police. And giving them your name, your address, maybe even your social security number. I'd be very reluctant to do that. But my name and my address, if I have a government ID, driver's license, that's at that point, if they go, well, we'd like to talk to you about, something that happened last Thursday. No. I'm now exercising my Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. And if you want to speak about last Thursday, do it with my lawyer. I might turn around and go, all right, we might contact you later. And if you already have your lawyer's card with you, which I always recommend you keep a lawyer's card with you, you say, Grant, here. You call him, make the arrangements through him. And if they go, no, we're not going to do that, am I free to go? And if you're free to go, say nothing more and proceed on what you were doing. At that point, I would also notify my attorney and tell him, hey, and, be careful. But always exercise your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. And don't do it just to be a pain in the ass. If there was a crime going on and you go, yeah, I saw something over there, I saw a guy, well, right, you could help the police. But if you were with that person, you didn't know what they were going to do. At that point, take your Fourth and Fifth Amendment, because anything you then say can be used against you, and now you're part of that group. Where if you had a lawyer present with him, you talk to him, and he goes, boom, 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 hey, my client was there. He had no idea what was going to go on. Yes, that person was this, and that person was this, and that person was that, but I had no idea. I'll be as cooperative as I can be with my attorney here, but and you have a good chance of going home and sleeping that night in your bed. Key due processes elements in immigration. The government must issue a form, and I said that before, a notice to appear, detailing charges, hearing dates, and consequences. Now, if you had a notice to appear and you failed to appear, yeah, you're not getting another one. You're being deported. You'll see a hearing judge. You either have an attorney, you don't have an attorney, you got X amount of days to get an attorney. If you can't get an attorney by then, we'll have the hearing again. We'll make, 2 or 3 days. And then after that, nope. Immigrants can hire attorneys at their own expense, but the government does not provide them, which a lot of people say is a major hurdle for fairness. Fairness? You broke into my house. There is no fairness. The fairness is that I get to see you kicked out of my house. There's no talk and no thing. Well, he was in your house and you should sit on your couch and you should feed him and you should make sure they have a bathroom to use. And then, by the way, they got to get to school, so you have to take them to school. There is no fairness. The fairness is you apply to come into this country and you follow the rules. That's the beginning of fairness. And you know what fairness is? Just another word that starts with the letter F. Evidence and witnesses. You have the right to call witnesses, present documents, and cross-examine government witness. That's guaranteed to you. So if you had documents that might have been, someone had that showed that you had papers, or, you had documents with a relative, and they bring them forward, and here's my documents, and they look at it and they go, oh, you have, you have a green card, but most of the time you carry your green card with you, and they tell you always carry this with you. They do that for a reason. If you didn't, then you didn't follow the procedures, and we follow ours. But you have the right to present that or to make that known. So part of the government thing, they look back and they go, yes, this guy has a green card. He wasn't carrying it. Would have made this whole procedure a lot easier, but he didn't. Right to interpreter. And you have the right to appeal a decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and then to federal court if you need to go further. That very rarely ever happens, unless it's something kicked in the news and, they get a lot of support. It doesn't really happen. The key differences from criminal due process: there's no right of the government-funded counsel to counsel. I don't need to provide you with an attorney. Again, it's a civil, not criminal. Cases are handled in immigration courts, part of the Department of Justice, not a federal crime court. Huge difference. Expedited removal. In limited cases, especially at the border, immigrants can face removal with fewer rights. They are challenging that, but if you get caught stepping your big toe across the border, we can push you right back across that border and drop you back off. You came in through Mexico, now you're going to go through Mexico. Boom, drive you right back, walk across, who brought you over, and that's about it. But the Democrats did a very good job of making it almost impossible for the federal government to go after illegals. Because we don't know who to ask. Are you a citizen? Are you here legally? And that's the pesky Fourth Amendment, which protects me, and I want that Fourth Amendment. And it also protects anyone in the country, legally or illegally. But the question still could be asked to me, are you a citizen? Now, I have a passport. I have documentation. Do I carry it with me? No, because as a citizen, I do not have to carry that. But I could show ID, and I could probably make a pretty strong case that I'm a citizen. But my grandmother, who spoke English, but with an Italian accent, she might have had a problem proving that she was American citizenship. If stopped on the street, she didn't carry her citizen papers with her. So, I mean, I can understand people going, hey, I don't carry this stuff with me. So then, do you see the situation that the Democrats have put onto all of us? They made it almost impossible for the government to go after these people. Very tricky, but we're going after them, and they're succeeding. Yeah. The people that voted for Trump are the same people that are going to vote. And guess what? When they hear Trump, they're going to go. Yep. And that's the way it's going to work. And this election is going to be all about fraud and Democrats in their states. And all the things that they have said, all the lies. It's going to be a tough race for the Democrats because it's going to be very hard for them to collect their monies that they were collecting, their donations. A lot of those donations have dried up. They don't want to be involved with a lot of these people. They don't want to be, corralled by these people. Why do you think all these people are moving, all these movie stars are moving out of the country? Why do you think that? You think it's because of the weather? Do you think that they actually fear the government? Some should, but they don't. One, they know that, like in California, if you live there, they're going to come after you. Even if you leave, they're going to reach back for their money. So these people are leaving before that happens, taking their millions and billions with them. And a lot of these people are afraid of a millionaire's tax. So they give up their citizenship and they move away. The average person here can't, we're going to stay. But if you want to move to Canada or Mexico or Venezuela, good luck to you. So no one's being stopped. No one is being stopped. We have a gate there that stops people that we don't know from coming in our country. but with very limited exceptions to travel bans. Do we stop people from visiting or leaving? So it's very easy to do. All right. With that, I thank you. I know this has been a long one. It's almost been an hour. And I struggled through it, got through it mostly without coughing and sneezing and, you know, wiping my nose too much. But with that, I'm going to say thank you. And as always, um, donate, uh, give to a charity if you can. If not, please look at food banks. They always need assistance with either food or a monetary donation, which goes a long way to help. And always say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what a Democrat might tell you. Prayer does work. With that, I'm going to be finishing up. And I have many technical problems with my switcher today, so there's a lot of rebuilding of things that I need to do. And with that, I thank you, and everyone be safe out there. Hug your loved ones. And I'll be back tomorrow with more. Like and subscribe, please. I need subscribers. It's a non-monetary channel, but I need subscribers. It opens the door on YouTube. All right, everyone. Thank you as I fade to